So the cursiveness finally led to a new writing system, Demotic.
That's right, yes.
So we are seeing kind of an overlapping period of these two related but different writing systems.
In the past, people would have said that one superseded the other, so that Demotic superseded hieratic. It wasn't like that. It's more complicated. Both of them survived, used for different purposes.
You mean side by side?
Side by side, yes. So this is a literary text which doesn't look very beautiful, but it's a very amazing literary text from about the same date as those other examples we've had. And nobody has seen this except for you, because this is not yet published. This is a papyrus which is written in a variant of the script which we call abnormal hieratic, much more cursive than its predecessors. And that's a literary text. It comes from Luxor, probably from the Theban necropolis. It was found by the great explorer Belzoni in the 1820s, and then it disappeared into a library. But the interesting thing about this from the point of view of the history of writing is that is in abnormal hieratic, the local script of Thebes, but it's actually about things that happen in the Delta. So probably it was not composed in abnormal hieratic, but in something else. And that's the last line of the text, and that gives a date and the sort of conclusion. Most of that text is very fragmentary, so we have just that one page which is nearly intact. So that's actually giving you the translation of that ending. And so you've got this date, which is probably a date of King Taharqa, so a date, king of about 680 BCE. So it's remarkable that we can date a thing like that.
You mentioned, it is not the way the hieratic system was superseded by Demotic. We can define kind of the development in stages, like hieratic, then abnormal hieratic, then Demotic. This is not the way, all right.
It's much more complicated than that, I'm afraid. So the Demotic appeared probably around Memphis and in the Delta, and about the same time as abnormal hieratic. So, and Joachim Kwak, a prominent Egyptologist, he thinks that there was a third style of writing between the Theban area and Memphis. We don't have a name for that.
I mean, it is associated with the locality.
That's right, yes. But then that didn't last, and Egypt was divided politically in that period. Then it was reunited by the Psammetichus and his descendant, Psammetichus I, and then Demotic superseded hieratic throughout the country. Sorry, it superseded abnormal hieratic. Hieratic itself continued, and you did still have regional varieties of Demotic, but less pronounced, much less pronounced. And I put the Fayum on because the Fayum is fantastically important for the Ptolemaic and Roman development of writing, because it was a desert area which was reclaimed for agriculture by the Ptolemies, and then it reverted to desert, and hence enormous numbers of papyri are found from there. And you have the site of Medinat Mahdi, Narmuthis is one site. Tebtunis, just to the right, near the bottom. There's Tebtunis, and for some reason it mentions a Jewish community, but there are others too. And then Dime to the north of the Fayum Lake. So these areas have produced the latest hieratic, hieroglyphs, and demotic on papyri. Here is an example which doesn't come from there, comes from probably somewhere not far from Oxyrhynchus, of hieroglyphs on papyrus. quite beautifully written from the Ptolemaic period. That didn't happen in earlier periods. And that, as you can see, that's a mixed text and pictorial composition. And this is a famous composition. It's called the Book of the Fayoum. And we don't know, these papyri came in the 19th century from the art market. We don't know where they are from. They are in hieroglyphs, as you can see, and it's also at the same time a map of the Fayoum. It's the most amazing document, and that papyrus dates to the Roman period, but it's probably an older composition. So all of this was happening at the same time, and particularly the site of Dime, there in the north of the Fayoum, has produced astonishingly wonderful texts, but also so has Tebtunis. And these were very provincial places. We must assume that in reality, this culture existed throughout the Nile Valley, in the major centers, but they've all disappeared. And here is how the Roman administration began to ruin things for the Egyptians. Ptolemaic and Roman Egypt were very bureaucratic places. You had to register everything and so on. And that is a legal document dated to the 7th of February, 85, which is the latest known legal document in Demotic. But it's got several lines of Greek at the bottom of the, you can probably see that. I've got an enlargement here.
So you mean two different writing systems were used at the same time for different registers of readers, or what?
Essentially, the bureaucrats used the Greek, and the Egyptians among themselves used the Demotic. So you produce the document in Demotic, and that's what the Egyptians liked. And then for the registering the document, that was done in Greek. And here is the learning that we had in the same period. So that is a very learned text, which was already about 1,500 years old, copied in beautiful hieratic, but it has interlinear features here and there, which show probably that people was finding this very hard to read. And we have another example here. This is more detailed. So here is hieratic, therefore, still in use for what we can call, it's a piece of sacred knowledge which has been handed down, but it's not sacred in a narrow sense. This is kind of an encyclopedia. So the text is written in hieratic, but you've got those tiny annotations all over it. Those are in Demotic. But some of them, maybe not on this particular slide, are in Greek letters. But the language of those Greek letters is Egyptian.
So it suggests that there always should be an overlapping period when one, new writing system appears and the old one disappears. There should be a kind of overlapping period.
In Egypt, that's certainly the case, so yes.
In the case of hieratic and Demotic, there is some complicated period of time overlapping.
Yes.
And that moves on to from Demotic to Coptic.
That's right, yes. I think that's absolutely right. You can see, just sort of notice on that papyrus how you've got these ruled lines to make sure that it's all beautifully arranged. And so people were able to do this in these semi-rural communities. But here is how papyri are found in the Fayoum. On the left, a color photograph of them being excavated just loose in the ground, and on the right, the products of that being put in a suitcase. Because it's just a tangled mass, and it will take many years to turn that suitcase into something that people can read and use. It'll probably mostly be in Greek. And these are Italian excavations, and the Italians are very strong in Greek from Egypt. But at the same time, what about hieroglyphs and hieratic? These ostraca, so potsherds with writing on them, they are much the same date as the last image. And you have extremely primitive hieroglyphs, top left, And then you have bottom right, hieratic. And those are probably more or less simultaneous. Whoever did the hieroglyphs, and you've got a drawing of them there, they couldn't cope with hieroglyphs anymore. So this is the dying of hieroglyphs in the Fayum. But you can read the name of the god Sobek, the crocodile god, who is the god of the Fayum. So it's not completely meaningless. But then we have this extraordinary document. We don't know where this is from. It might be from Oxyrhynchus, I think. It's in Greek letters, but it is in classical Egyptian. So Egyptian of 2,000 years earlier. It's extremely difficult to read. And there are various possible interpretations. Nobody agrees on what it means. And so this was happening. In addition to all the other things, there was this, where you used Greek letters. And this is very important historically, because this develops into Coptic. People call this Old Coptic. And here is a transcription on the left, a phonetic writing out, first in a conventionalized form of transcribing Egyptian and Coptic, and then underneath a fully phonetic writing, and then a translation. That's by Antonio Locrieno. But you will find that there are several specialists, they don't all agree.
So it means someone tried to transliterate the old Egyptian document with Greek alphabets.
Basically, that's what they're doing. That's right. But one or two little features suggest it's a bit more than that. If you look up the third line on the left, you can see it ends with 3 weird signs, and that is some sort of an annotation which is going outside the alphabet. And also the circle that's around the first word on the second line, that is, as it were, it's a cartouche. It's the way an Egyptian king's name is written, because that is the name of the god Osiris. It doesn't write Osiris, it writes Wenafar, which is one of Osiris's names. But we again have something not unknown that we can add to this, which is that Joachim Kvak, I've already mentioned him, he found another bit of that papyrus, and that bit is in Greek letters, except there's also some demotic in another area of the papyrus. So it's even more complicated than we thought. So this is what's known as the London Leiden Magical Papyrus, 3rd century CE. So it's contemporary with those other things I'm showing you. It comes from Thebes, and it's in a mixture of Egyptian and Greek, but mainly Egyptian. And so demotic was still, magical texts are very important because people want remedies and for their problems. It was also obviously just a tiny group of people who could produce this by this date. So this is really right at the end of the Egyptian process. But in terms of what we know, it's earlier than the latest hieroglyphs, but perhaps that's chance.